Greetings everyone, I'm Hamster, and again, it seems like I'm by myself, so let's do another exploration. We have one more harvester to go through, so I thought, why not do a little bit more exploring? Now, it's alright if you skip these, nothing exciting is going to happen, we're just going to take a look around and look at some of the more uncommon sights that most people might not notice. What happened there was me just trying to get a nice look at the ocean. I just wanted to see how it looked. Again, this is all about being relaxed and enjoying the sights. We are, after all, tourists, and that's what tourists do. You know, they do sightseeing. I believe that's the implication of the quest text as well, that they're implying that the harvest tours are mainly just like a touristy type thing. And there I was just making sure I had items with me. I should have prepared ahead of time, so my bad in not doing so. Now, the reason why I chose this at night is you get some nice falling stars going off in the background, as you can see there. They don't always go off, but there are intervals they go off on every time you enter a map. I believe it's every few minutes. And as you can see, there is a Apnoth in the background there sleeping. I kind of found that detail interesting. I never noticed that before until, you know, recently, when I was looking about, and I thought it was kind of, I like that detail. And I believe this is an interesting point of reference to look down there. This essentially just shows that we're all the way up here, high up on a cliff, on a mountainside. And throughout the game, we'll actually be able to sort of see where this mountain is, I believe. Looking about, we can see there's a lot of water. I'm assuming it's a large lake, perhaps? But more interesting is you can just faintly see in the background there, but there's herds of Apnoth moving about. I was hoping to be able to see it, but because of the distraction of the falling stars, and me thinking it's a very pretty to look at, and the dim light, you can just barely see it, but in the daylight, you can see it very well, and I kind of like that there. Just these mass herds of Apnoth moving, just kind of like a herd of water buffalo moving about, if that makes any sense. Now, they are actual sprites. I believe they're 2D sprites that are moving along the map planes, and eventually, if you wait long enough, the herd will have moved out of your vision. You know, they'll disappear off the map. But it takes a while for them to do that, and I'm not going to quite show it off. If you have the game, or a game with this map, and when I say that, I mean like Tri-Ultimate, for example, check it out. I believe Third Particle also has this map. And as you can see, there's a nice little detail. The secret entrance. There's just a hole where we fell through. I do like that little detail. That being said, this harvest tour isn't too exciting in terms of going back and getting items. I believe the only unique items that you'd really want is ice crystals. And you really don't need very many of them. By the time you've done single player missions, you should have more than enough ice crystals. So the only real interesting thing to come back for would be glue hoppers, which you can only get on this map. Again, it's a type of bug that is used for armors, and you can't, make more of them on the farm, unfortunately. And, as you can see down there seems to be a nice sort of savanna. But the paths we take lead us away from the savanna and into the desert. Or perhaps it's more of a plains than a savanna. Again, my geography is not very good. And as you could see from up here, down there was the swamp. And over there is a huge tree. I kind of wish we could go over to that tree. Perhaps there's a hollow spot inside the tree. And then you could fight in this large hollow spot. I kind of would like that. Abnoth carcass, always lovely. And of course over that way is 4. Again, if you look back and forth between the areas, you can kind of get a feel like you're going a fairly large distance from one area to the next. Like, I believe this is... You've gone past the plains and you're just at the border of the desert. But if we look up there, we can see the mountains we came from. So that's a pretty large distance that we've traversed. Even though 4 to 1 only takes seconds in-game, it seems like it's supposed to be... Perhaps you spent hours going down this far. We get some, and we get some nice little caverns here. I do like the Jaggy's Nest, where there is... Oh, and speaking of Jaggy, it seems like I have a visitor. It seems like I wasn't entirely correct when I said that only high rank would get the unstable territory. But if I were to kill him, I would actually get, like, Jaggy items in the reward box. But I do like the Jaggy's Nest with the holes that the Jaggies will come out of. And I don't know, it's just a nice touch. Under here, I would assume that we're under the desert since sand is coming from the ceiling. Of course, since there's Malinxes, I have to. Also, there's nothing more satisfying than chain juggling Malinxes about. Unfortunately, they don't have enough health to chain juggle them. And they do fly a little too high up after the second hit as well. But, as you've seen, and might recall, there are a lot of mining spots down here. If you're ever needing ice crystals, this would be the place to get them. I believe they can only be gotten in 6 because, well, I'd imagine ice crystals don't do too well in the sun, perhaps? Though, well, Monster Hunter logic... With Monster Hunter logic, that probably actually makes sense. I don't believe I've ever gotten ice crystals anywhere outside of this, this one area. But as said, don't worry about ice crystals. It's not really a thing that comes up much. And if you need to get your items back, you can do it right here in this area as well. Usually there's also some mushrooms about here. If you need some nitro shrooms, to get them started on your farm, I believe there's usually a good quantity of them down here. And if we were to to have had any items stolen from us, we could just retrieve them from this spot here. But since nothing has been stolen from us, nothing really happens. Now, it's not always a 100% that you get your items. Do remember that. Sometimes you just get, say, a bug husk. And Cha-Cha decides that trying to blind the Bahabras is the best idea. There is also a lovely little pool of water here. I don't recall if there's fish or not. But a surefire place you can fish is in 7. Now that I've explored all the other areas, I believe we should move on to the desert and check it out. Now, 9, 8, and 10 will have weather effects, depending on the time of day. If it's at night, well, there is not enough, how do you say? There's not enough foliage and rocks and things in general for, like, the sunlight to have landed on and sort of, just heat everything up. The heat being absorbed over the time of night and day. It's too barren for that, so it'll be freezing cold at night, and it'll be the same as, well, if you were out in the tundra in this game. And your stamina will deplete over time if, again, you're out in the cold for too long. So it's not one of the bad weather effects, but during the day it's sweltering heat, and you will slowly lose health over time instead. Which is not so good. And again, looking towards the direction of the mountains we came from. Kinda nice. I do like that detail. And for some reason there's aside from the obvious reason of putting sort of zone limits, there's sort of a crevasse there. I'd imagine perhaps some large earthquake happened, who knows. But there's some cacti there that'll be important for a later monster. If you do need cactuses, and that's another thing that you can only get from this zone, but you really only need one. And once you got this one cactus, you can just make more on your farm. But there's a surefire way to go to get cactus flowers, and that's due by the cactus. Now, while there isn't really very many ruins in the desert, I will show off a couple of spots where there's sort of some hidden deserts, which makes you think, perhaps there was a civilization here in the desert, and it sunk under. Natural disasters, perhaps? Who knows? But there are these sort of strange intersections of rocks, or perhaps old roots. Between the fragments of the... No, it is stone, okay. But, it is kind of strange that they're there. And again, we can always look up to see the mountains where we came from. I don't know if anybody caught that, but it's there. It's right there. And again, I really do love that. I believe it was first this time and time where I started to notice that that was actually the mountains that I came from. And once I noticed that, I appreciated it a lot more. But as you can see, even in the desert, there is still some green foliage. And leading out that way leads to, that this is essentially like the border of the desert itself that we're wandering on. If we would go that way, there'd be massive dunes and probably large expanses of, well, sand and nothing. Perhaps if you were lucky, you could find an oasis or two somewhere out there. one of the necessary and easier spots to not quite realize how to get to at first, but after some experimentation of running against the wall, you will probably eventually find it, is this area. This area is kind of, well, I will say this much, it's very important because this is actually a nest for some monsters. And if we look carefully, we'll notice that there are indeed some ruins. As I mentioned, we'd take a look at them when we found them. And either people lived underground, perhaps? And then some natural disasters split open the caverns, and then monsters started pouring in, they had to move. Or perhaps it was above ground, and the earth split asunder, and, well, here they are now. People moved out. There's even some ruins right here in this corner. There's an archway of sorts, but I wish it was more than just a texture. But I believe that would be all there is for the map. Just getting one last look at the ruins here. And, yeah, it seems like there isn't really too much left to explore. You can go back up to the desert if you want. By going through here, you'll go back to 10. But with that being said, well, I'll see you next time. Join me for another, when we do another one of these, but it won't be just now. We'll do it a bit later. See you next time.